Cool.
Welcome, everybody. You're listening to House Talk, a signature home inspection presentation. My name is Scott Knutson. Thanks for joining. In today's episode, I'm excited to have Randy Johnson with LockTech. Welcome, Randy. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm excellent.
Good,
What do you
good,
want to do?
good. We have, it's been a while since I've seen you. You're usually holding the flag at the affiliate meetings and the brokers previews. So I've been a while since you've been able to do that with this pandemic, huh?
This is true.
Good. How's business?
I've been swamped with work lately. There's an issue going on right now where there's several locksmith companies that have closed down, and several of the ones that I know have moved out of state. So it's leaving the rest of us with a whole lot more work to do per locksmith.
Why are they closing down and why are they moving? What are the
More the pandemic and the economic situation with businesses that have closed down. So if they have had standard businesses in certain types of businesses and they're no longer getting that work because they're closed down, they have a choice of either building a new line of business or group of businesses, which isn't always easy in a pandemic, or moving out of state and starting over. And I know several that have done that.
So they were basically specialized in one field and they weren't diversified into different fields. Is
Correct.
that kind of what you're saying?
2008, I experienced that as well. And I had two large businesses that I was doing most of the work for. And when they shut down and closed down, I had to scramble and go get new business. And it worked out for me. I weathered it and came through it. Now I'm getting a whole lot more referrals from other locksmiths in the area because they're either swamped or they can't do the type of work that I do. I go beyond what most locksmiths are capable of doing, and I'm a mentor to several, and they feed me work. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we learned our lesson during that last pandemic. It was 2008, and when you have a certain, you have realtors that use you, and all of a sudden, they're gone. You're like, well, okay, where'd they go? And so lesson learned from that on our end was that we decided, okay, we're going to diversify. Instead of just doing home inspections, we're going to break out into doing sewer scopes. We're going to start doing some mold testing, different things. We can do pool inspections, radon. So there's different things that we're doing that we can still work even if there was a slowdown. I remember when this hit in March, April. It was like, oh, here we go again, and
Yep.
a month later, it was like, oh, we didn't get quite to where we were at the year before, but it was, we were probably down 60, 70,000, over a 2-month period. And we ended up catching up and making that up at the end of the year, but we didn't, exceed what we did the year before, because usually we're exceeding the years. But gangbusters the rest of the year, and we made it up. But those 2 months were kind of devastating because it just hit right when it's our busy season. April, May, March. That's our busiest season. So, all right. Well, we didn't really get into an introduction. So, if you would like to introduce yourself, tell me a little bit about your company's name, how long you've been in business, and then we can start to get into some questions, specifics.
Cool. I'm Randy Johnson. The company name is LockTech. If I duck, you can see that on my background.
Yep, I can see it.
I'm learning more and more about the technology side of things for the computer and stuff. I rarely get on the computer, so this is more of a learning experience for me as well. So I appreciate the opportunity to learn some more. I started full-time locksmithing in 1986. I came from a background of, I used to work on building apartments during the summers. I took night classes in welding, blueprint reading, metallurgy, and drafting, and kind of launched into a metal manufacturing background. The farthest I got with that is I was E-pressure vessel rated for 1500 PSI welding, where you have to actually have your welds x-rayed to make sure there's no porosity and nothing in that weld that would cause a failure. So that was one of the things I got to do. I also used to work on the west side of the Great Salt Lake. I came from Utah. Um,
I went
learned
to school at the University of Utah, so go Utes.
I went there for one semester and realized that university life wasn't for me. So I started taking night classes, got a part-time job, and started taking night classes to learn something, a physical hands-on skill, not the mental gymnastics you have to have for college.
Yeah.
So I'm really good at troubleshooting. I'm really good at physically thinking through a problem of why it's doing what it is, what steps I need to take to get it to do what it's supposed to do instead of what it's doing, and go from there. So that's my claim to fame, shall we say. I'm really good at going in and diagnosing what's going on with a lock issue or a door issue, or if somebody's front door is having problems because it's hitting at the top of the door frame and it's not closing like it's supposed to and latching like it's supposed to. The wind might blow the door open because the hinges are out of alignment, and it's not latching because the strike is higher than what the latch is because the door is sagging. So sometimes it's just something as simple as tightening up the hinge screws and the door starts working again. But you don't know what the issue is until you actually get there. Rains cause a lot of issues where a building will settle during rain because the ground gets soft underneath. Earthquakes are another reason why doors and door frames don't work. So a lot of that is troubleshooting, figuring out what's going on and what needs to be done to realign it. I owe a lot of my knowledge with working with my grandfathers during summer vacations before I started working on apartments. One was a concrete contractor, the other was a finish contractor, and they would build houses together. And I got the opportunity to go help with that. So I learned a lot directly, hands-on experience from that as well. Back to locksmithing. The last year I was at Amex Magnesium on the west side of the Great Salt Lake, I got chemical bronchitis 4 times. They wouldn't move me from the area I was at where I was getting exposed to chlorine gas and hydrochloric acid gases back to a safer, less contaminated area. So I left for my health and eventually saw an ad in a Sunday want ad that said, apprentice locksmith on a phone number. I was one of over 100 that called, one of 10 that he brought in to interview, and one of 2 that he agreed to apprentice. That was probably my best phone call I ever made. That has given me a career that's lasted since 1986.
Now, did you do it up in Salt Lake for a while before you moved it down here, or that was down here?
I did. I used to get to go to the ski resorts to make keys for people that lost keys in the snow. Now I get to go to the beach to make keys for people that lose keys in the sand. Same job, just better environment.
Well, I'll tell you a quick story. When we go in to do houses, and this is not down here, but up in Utah, they give us access to the super lockbox. And so what we would do sometime, or when I didn't do it anymore after this one time, but what I used to do is I used to leave the key in the lock. So it was, I always knew where it was at. And this one time, this family come back, the buyers came in and their small kid grabbed the key and chucked it out in the grass. And I'm just going, as it's in the air, I'm just going, no, because, you get this big bushy grass and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to find that. And I'm just like, what did you do? So from that time on, I don't ever put it in the lock anymore. If sometimes the realtors will leave and say, hey, I'll be back in 20 minutes. I'll take the key and I'll just put it on the kitchen counter so nobody can do that. So learn my lesson that one time on that. And then when you were talking about welding, that brought back some memories. When I was in college, I worked for a mechanical company, and I got stuck with this welder. I was like a day laborer, and he used to always tell me, don't look at it, don't look at it, and
You get
and
flash burn.
oh yeah. So anyway, and I didn't think I was looking at it. I didn't, he had his helmet on, but I was, having to hold or do whatever I had to do for him. And I remember one night I woke up in the middle of the night and I couldn't see. I woke
Yep.
up and I burned my eyes, and it was 3 days of agony. Ended up having to go down to the ER, and they put those drops in your eyes,
Yep.
and that's what had happened. It burned my eyes, and another lesson learned. And I swear I wasn't looking at it. It just, even if you're, if you don't have that
Creates
helmet
an
on,
opportunity.
it'll
Yep.
still get you.
Yep.
So, when you said that, that's the first thing I thought of. So,
Why
so
we
yeah, so
wear all the protective gear we wear when we're welding.
yeah, I should have looked at him and said, "Hey, where's my helmet at?" You're
Yep.
that's your fault, because I wasn't looking at it. I was looking away, but you're still going to get it out of the corner of your eye.
Absolutely.
So back to Lock Tech, and
You
I
mentioned something that I deal with occasionally when realtors have open houses and somebody finds the key that they're using because they left it on the countertop, like what you said,
yeah,
or somebody opens a drawer and finds a spare key and takes it. I've had to come back in and rekey a house right after they get done showing the house because the keys have been taken. And the realtor doesn't want to take a chance of somebody coming back when they're not there. So I've, Sunday afternoon, I'm out rekeying the house just because a key got taken.
yeah. We always put it in our I can tell you stories too where we've showed up and they'll say, yeah, the key's in there. And we go to open up the box and it's not there. It's like, well,
Yep.
somebody's got it. We can't get in. Um, but back to the, whenever we're done with the home inspection, we always recommend rekeying the locks.
Mhm.
Whenever I've bought a place or even when I've rented a place, I've asked them, I want this rekeyed because I don't know who was there before.
You have
I don't,
absolutely no idea.
yeah, you have no idea who's got the key. And so we always rekey it. The other thing too is that we always recommend is that when we go out to do like a 10-plex or a larger multifamily, the problem that we have a lot of times is that we get out there and we tell the realtors or whoever's, the property manager, we say, listen, we're going to go out there. We need, there are times where tenants will change the lock.
Mhm.
And if we can't get in, we've got to come back and we're going to have to charge a return trip fee because we don't work for free. The fee that we're charging is for that one trip. We got to come back. So I usually tell them, if it's a bigger unit, I tell them, I say, you need to have a locksmith on call because you're going to have that problem. If you have a 10-unit complex, I bet 2 of them are going to have tenants that have rekeyed it because they don't want anybody to be able to come in, even though they're not supposed to, but we
Right.
see it.
It
So
does happen frequently. We had that happen with the homeowners association as well, where they had the gas shut off for 2 weeks because of gas leaks. And they had to have locksmiths out there. We had actually 3 locksmiths out there on the property opening and making keys for the apartments, because most of them were apartments, to have access so that they could go in and check the pilot lights and turn them on after the gas had been turned on, just make sure everything was safe. And the tenants were notified to either leave a key with the property manager and or be there on site for that to let us in. But there was enough work for 3 of us to keep busy for a day and a half to let the the gas company in to do what they needed to do to get everything set to rights after they got the piping fixed.
yeah,
So you never know what's going to happen. For realtors, one of the things that I get also is homeowners typically are going in and out of the garage. They've got the remotes. They're not going through the front door. And a lot of them don't even know where their front door key is. And a lot of times it's not the same key as, especially if they've changed their front door, it's not the same key as everything else in the house. So I get to, before a realtor can put their lockbox on, go and make keys to the new, the existing lock that they don't have a key to, so they can show the house. So that's something that I help realtors with all the time. And you're in that same situation. Um, they may have a key to the garage, but not a key to the front door. If the garage is closed, you're not getting from the garage into the house.
Yeah. Well, we always recommend, we when we're doing inspections, we see the exterior deadbolt that's got a key to it. Now it's like if that key's gone, and you can't get out because of a fire,
Right.
we tell them. I mean, we'll go into a house and there will be, that deadbolt and the key's gone. It's like, and we tell them, we like, you need to change these out. They've got to be changed out. So what I'll have to do is, before I forget, is I'll have to, we've got a trusted, I don't know what it's called, trusted professionals tab on our website, because we get so many people that will call us and say, do you know a locksmith, or do you know a plumber, or do you know this and that? And so what I do is, instead of having to say, yes, here's this and this and this, because a lot of times I'm out in the field, I just direct them to our website. So I'll have to get your contact. Well, I think I've got all your contact information. So if you're okay with it, I'll just go ahead and put that on there underneath the locksmiths.
Yeah.
And that way, anybody says, hey, go ahead and contact Randy at LockTech. So we'll
I'm going back into the resource guide again for OCAR. And I think this year I'm the only locksmith in there again.
Yeah, that's how I got your information, because what I did was, when I decided to start this podcast, was that I'm going to say, I got that resource book. I'm like, well, I'm going to start there with guests, because they're affiliates. They're they're affiliates of I mean, what do they call it? OCR. I keep calling it OCAR, just because that's how.
Yeah, it's OCR now. It used
OCR.
to be AR, but OCR.
Yeah. So that's where I started, and that's where I got you out in there. You get in that book, though, then you all of a sudden you get to the mortgage part, and there's like 50 mortgage people in there. Home inspectors, I think there's maybe 20 in there. I know there's more home inspectors than that, but I think there was you and one other guy, I think, that I saw. I don't know about the new one, but the one that I had, there might have been 2 people in there. So
right.
Let's
at one time, but now I think just me this year.
So on your website, you've got, you do residential, commercial, and management companies. What are some of the stuff that you do on residential?
Mostly rekeying and or replacing locks. I have a lot of customers wanting me to replace their deadbolts with electronic deadbolts so that they can use a code to get in. One of the better locks that I enjoy is the Schlage Encode, which is their newest version, that has a built-in Wi-Fi antenna as well as a built-in Bluetooth antenna. So you can use your cell phone when you're right close to the lock to either open or program whatever you need to do with the lock, or you can use Wi-Fi anywhere in the world to be able to set up a new code, let somebody in, and say, for instance, you have a home inspector that needs to come in. They can just give you a code that's a temporary code. You go in, you get done, you go back out and lock up, and then they delete the code. I do that a lot with the Airbnb or vacation rentals. We have quite a few in Laguna Beach that do vacation rentals where they're just using codes. They're not giving keys. And that works out really well for the landlords for that.
Yeah, I can imagine. So how do you keep up on the technology? I'm sure are you like do you have like a magazine or a board that you're a member of that kind of keeps you updated on all this new technology that's coming out, or it's just curious on just because you're a locksmith?
Yes, yes, and yes. I have a magazine. It's a monthly, actually several monthly magazines. I'm part of trade organizations also that do education. I'm on a secure network of locksmiths and safe technicians throughout the United States and somewhat in the UK as well. Actually, we have a few guys in Australia too. So we educate each other. We share what we've been doing, issues that we've overcome. So it helps the next guy. All of the manufacturers, when we're having trade shows, although this year we're not having any trade shows, but they still offer classes during the trade shows the week before where we can go in and learn what's new, what has come out, different ways to do things, how to program locks, how to do wiring, how to do wireless. There's some really good wireless companies out there now that makes it more cost effective to put in the smart locks, in commercial especially. So we deal with all of that kind of stuff. Um, Regular locksmithing, I could do regular locksmithing out of the trunk and back seat of a car. That's all the equipment a regular locksmith needs to do residential. But I'm a commercial locksmith specialist. I've got several backgrounds of training in all of those areas. So I'm kind of the mentor for locksmiths in the Southern California area. I've got locksmiths in Long Beach that I mentor. I used to have uh, a guy that actually came out and trained with me from Florida before he went back to Florida. So, you know, I've pretty well networked with quite a few locksmiths in the area.
Good, good. I think there was one meeting that we were at where you were talking about safes. Do you deal with a lot of residential safes? Because I remember you were talking about, the safes not to buy, because for example, I know that, most people's first safe that they get is going to be the one at Costco. I don't know what the brand of it is, but basically you can just take a big magnet and anybody can pop it open with a magnet.
They've made a few changes to that, so you have to know a little bit more to be able to do that.
Yeah.
They've and not all of their safes can now be opened with a magnet, but there's other easy ways to open it.
Yeah.
I've got a 11-second video of me using a 12-inch nail puller to open one of those safes that we're discussing. And literally it's 11 seconds of me from when it's closed to getting it popped open. They're basically made out of plastic and pot metal.
Yeah.
They're not designed to protect anything more than documents from fire. So for instance, if you put anything jewelry wise or stuff that you want to keep from not being stolen, anything that costs more than the safe cost is not being protected.
Yeah.
They're literally designed to protect documents from fire.
Yeah.
What their rating is for.
Most of the time, I mean, I don't know what brand it is, but it was something that I bought, before I knew anything about these safes. And it was, my biggest problem is because, we do get paid cash. And so sometimes I need to have a place to put it until I can have a chance to, I don't go to the bank every single day.
Mm-hmm.
But my problem is that, I do want to keep a certain amount on hand. And I think the one I have is waterproof, fireproof, but it's like, how do you keep it from being moldy? It just, it just seems like you can't keep it dry and it's always stinking in there. And
anything that you put in a safe like that could be damaged that way, put it in either Tupperware or Ziploc baggies so that you're not getting that mold and mildew smell. The fire lining in fire safes has moisture in it. And what happens when there is a fire, you have a phase change state of the moisture that's in there that turns from water to steam. So everything inside there gets wet from the steam. And there's enough steam in there to protect the paper or documents or whatever's in there for roughly about an hour. And beyond that, then it starts overheating and starts charring and starts
yeah.
getting destroyed.
So before we close out residential, what brand is the best overall lock that you could use on a residential house?
Depends on what kind of security you're looking for. Most of the commercial locks that are out there can also work on homes. They just need to be ordered correctly to be able to fit. There's a commercial back set, which is 2 3/4 inch. There's a residential back set from the center of the lock to the edge of the door of 2 3/8. That's what most residential is. Most of the commercial stuff, we can order the smaller latch or bolt to go in and make it more secure. As far as my favorite, I like Schlage. Kwikset has some interesting features to it that are also good, but the physical side of things, um, size matters. Schlage is size-wise more impressive to me and stronger than most anything else that's out there. And they're we're able to get Schlage on a daily basis. It's not hard to get Schlage. Some of the other things are harder to get.
Well, if you see behind me, I live in a work live loft. So my main floor is commercial, and then I live on the top two floors. And when I bought this place, that's the first thing I did was have that. You can see that door over there,
Right.
the glass door. It's a commercial door, but they came in and changed it. He goes, I'm going to up. He goes, you can upgrade this lock. He goes to one where they're very difficult to pick.
Yep.
And I think it wasn't that much more, but and the key was totally different. It doesn't even look like the old, key anymore. I was like, let's do it, and he just gave me a card that has a code on it to where if I ever need to make extra ones. So I felt a lot.
It's what they call a signature card.
Yeah.
They won't make that key unless you have that card.
Yeah. I think I've got that card somewhere. I know I have it. I think I've got it in a different
There's
area.
several good ones out there. Multi-lock, Medico, Schlage Primus, all have those features, and they're all
but I haven't had any problem with that door since then. So,
yep.
And then,
Those locks are made better than the cheaper ones, so they'll hold up longer too.
yeah.
You
Then
have a roll-up door in the back behind you. Does that have an operator?
it doesn't. It's just a manual it's just like a regular garage door. So they built these to where they're actually considered art lofts. You probably know where they're at. I won't tell anybody where it's at, but you know where they're at.
Yeah.
So basically these were built to where they could have art studios down here. And, most people, now have like law offices. I think there might be a few that are hairstylists, and then there's a home inspection company. There's just different smaller. You don't really need a big office. For example, home inspectors, they can come here when they get their when they need to get supplies or mold supplies or whatever. But most of us work from home. But we have our we used to have our meetings. Now it's all via Zoom.
Yep.
I'll see them every once in a while, but it's always mask up and all that stuff. So, but usually I'm gone. They come and drop off checks and just drop it off here. So, and then on the and this is something that and again, the reason I'm not asking for like the most expensive or, because homeowners is something we're going to be looking for. Realtors, homeowners, obviously they're not going to pay, they're not going to say, oh, I'm going to buy a $3,000 safe. What safe would you recommend for the average homeowner and approximate cost? Because I think that would be useful, because the safe I've got right now is really too big for what I really need it for. I don't put a lot of documents in there because I don't like that moldy smell. I've tried everything to where I haven't tried the Tupperware, but I've tried the Ziploc bag. I've put baking soda in there, or what's that, Arm & Hammer. I've tried the stuff that you can buy from Amazon to put in it. And if I leave it in there for any amount of time, I still get that moldy smell. What I ended up doing is every couple of weeks, I just open it up, air it out.
Exactly.
and then swap out whatever's in there. But as far as like birth certificates and stuff like that, Social Security cards, I'm not going to put in the safe. But what safe would you recommend for the average homeowner?
Those safes match a dollar point. That company is also one of the biggest manufacturers of safes in the world, but they also have some of not the cheapest, but they're in that ballpark. Most of the good safes are going to have a burglary rating and a fire rating. Most of them we call composite safes. Some of the less expensive ones for a small safe is going to start in the $500 to $600 range. I just checked one for a guy that has a lot of stuff in there that's valuable. And the safe he had is what they call a TL30 rating. And it's about 30 inches tall, about 26 inches wide, and about 22 inches deep. Weighs 1,200 pounds. The safe that's roughly the same inside as that at the Costco's and the big box stores weighs approximately 90 pounds.
Wow.
Uh,
I'm not lugging that up to my third floor.
no, but just to move that safe from where they have it because they're getting ready to move it to a new location, it's going to cost them just for the move about $700 because of how heavy it is and the stairs that they have to go up and down to get it out. So that's safe. The door itself, the metal on the door is 1.5 inches thick. And it's a composite, so the walls are a couple inches thick as well. So it's got a cement fill as well as metal lining on both the inside and the out. So it's like a safe within a safe with a cement fill that gives it the 2-hour fire protection. The safes at Costco are a 1-hour fire. Um,
So how long would it take you to open that safe?
the TL30 rating,
Yeah.
about an hour to an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And that's without destroying it, without forcing it. That's knowing what I know, um, how to get it open and how to repair it. Because once it's open, I can repair it as well and get it back in service. The stuff that they sell at the big box stores, um, the manufacturer's point of view is, um, if it breaks, destroy it, get it open, and then buy another one.
Yeah.
It's a throwaway product. It's not made to be repaired.
Yeah.
And I don't sell any of those safes, but I make a lot of money from them because they break all the time.
Yeah. Well, good. Good info. I've been on commercial. What's some of the big things that you do in commercial?
I've got vaults that have 2 and 3 locks on them. I service bank vaults, where it's a different kind of lock than what you have on the residential. It's a bigger, heavy duty lock. Just replaced a time lock on there where they wind the clock that has like a 17 joule movement. It's like a Swiss watch, but it has a snubber in there that, as long as that countdown timer is going, you can't open the safe even though you know the combination. You have to wait till that mechanical time lock runs down before you can open the safe. So we have a lot of banks that have that. So that's part of what I get to do. I just refurbished a kind of like a jewelry vault, so to speak, for a jeweler that had it moved from LA to his location in Garden Grove. He got a really good buy on it from somebody that went out of business. And we just serviced the lock and put a new combination on it. And he's got a really good safe for a little bit of money. So used safe, in my opinion, is a really good way to go if you can find what you're looking for.
Yeah.
New safes are available. There's safes out there that run 20 grand, 30 grand, just depending on what you want. And that would go in a residence.
Yeah.
But that's when you're going to put a really expensive collection in. You mentioned you're putting baking soda and stuff like that in there. There's a product called EvaClear, EVCLEAR, and they have some that are battery operated. They have some that you can plug in. They have dry rods for some of the bigger safes. So it keeps the safe at an interior temperature that keeps that moisture from causing a problem. I've seen really good collectible guns that have been destroyed by the moisture in those fire safes. They get pitted because they weren't treated. Um, so that's, if you don't have your gun oiled well, wrapped well, protected well, and you have it in that fire safe, it's in an environment that can cause pitting and or rust if you don't keep that aired out and or properly treated.
Yeah. That's what I've had to do is just every couple of weeks, I just open it up and air it out when I'm home and then start all over again. So I've, like I said, I've tried everything.
Well, you have the moisture O-ring, the moisture seal as well. So that's not letting any air in and out. Most of the fire safes, like the gun safes, will have a seal that still gives you some airflow in there, but that seal is a pneumatic seal where it will swell when it heats. and seal the door so that you're not getting moisture and heat transfer through that seal. But until then, you actually have a little bit of airflow.
Yeah.
And that's one of the ways that you can get by with that. But they're fire safes as well as burglary safes. But how they keep their fire rating is with that seal that expands when it gets on.
So what new products are coming out that you're excited about that you can tell us about?
Well, the newest one is, like I said, the Schlage Encode deadbolt. Um, that way you can use a code to come in. You can control who has the ability to come in and win. If you've got a housekeeper, for instance, that you have come in once a week, you can program it where that housekeeper has a code to come in only on those days that you want them to come in and only for the hours that you want them to come in.
Is it something that you can put on that type of door? Because I've got a housekeeper. What I have to do is I've just got the old realtor box, like the old, code, and I just give her the code.
Yeah, you have a mortise cylinder lock, and there are some electronic locks available for that. I put them on several of the Montessoris in the area that have that same type of door, and that way they can control who comes in and what code they use, and they can do the programming as well. So yes, that is available.
Yeah, because that's
And
what I have to do
that's an
now is
offline discussion on pricing and
out of my price range, probably.
well, you're probably looking in the $1,500 range.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. Cause there's only a few people that have code have access to that. Cause it's just and
in your circumstances, a key is a lot easier to control because you've got the key control already. And if they lose that key, a lot of places with those type of keys, homeowner associations, especially on their gates for the public areas, they'll charge a deposit. And when they give the keys back, they get their deposit back. So you're not really buying that key. You're giving the landlord or the association the ability to afford to rekey if the keys get out of control. Too many keys get lost.
Well, that's what's nice about that old I don't want to say a realtor box. What they call combo box is that, I can change the combo anytime on it and say, anybody that has it, if they've been revoked access, I'll just change it and then send it out. Cause the only person that needs to get in is a couple of my guys that work for me. And then, the maid. And then I actually installed a wireless keypad on there for the garage as well. So I've got a few ways I can get in without having, if I can't get in through that door, I can get in through the back garage door as well.
On your back garage door, you do have an operator. Is it in the center or on the side?
You mean the garage door opener?
Yeah.
It's in the center. Okay.
You have an emergency release on that. So one of the ways they being burglars get in is they go up over the top of the door in between the door and the weather strip with a hook piece of wire, and they hook the emergency release, roll the door up, step in, roll the door down, and now they've got access to the inside.
Yeah.
If you put a 2x4 across the top of the header above where the door goes up so that when it's rolling up, it doesn't hit it, then they don't have room to get that wire up in there. And that's a $10 fix just about any do-it-yourselfer can do, or any handyman can do. And it costs maybe $10 of material and screws, 2x4 and some screws. And literally you stop them from getting in that way.
Yeah. I'm actually looking
because on your door.
What's that?
On your glass on your door, do you have security film on your glass? I see it's frosted.
Yeah.
Security film will actually hold the glass together if somebody tries to break through and break the glass.
Yeah.
It'll hold the glass together so they still don't get in. And there's better security films out there, and there's better treatments out there. There's actually a treatment that you go on to the glass before you put the security film on. They'll make that glass bullet resistant. So it may not stop a 50 caliber rifle, but it will stop pistols and small arms fire.
Yeah, I think the only people we have around here is porch pirates. we we have them quite a bit around here. I think they're everywhere though.
They are.
Yeah, as back to the garage door, I've been thinking about changing out the two. I mean, they're not that old, but even with the newer garage doors, my main thing is because I'm pretty close to the main road where my unit is, and I can't tell you. I did it this morning when I left. I'm like, did I close that door? And I got to circle back around. And nowadays they've got the garage door openers where if the door is up, it'll automatically close after a few minutes.
Right.
They've actually got the doors that have the lock pins that pop out and will automatically lock. And I think those are the ones I'm going to probably go with and then you can actually do it wireless as well.
Yep.
Through the wireless. So eventually I'm going to change them out, and just because it's a 2-car garage, but there's 2 separate doors. So
Right.
I have to get 2 separate motors on them, but that's the one I'm going to go with, is one with the lock pin that pops in there and locks it. So
Yep. That way, if you're on the inside, you know what to do to be able to open it, even if the power is off.
Yeah.
If you're on the outside, going up over the top of the door isn't going to do any good, because you have those deadbolts, is what they
Yeah.
are basically. They're
Yeah.
spring-loaded deadlocks.
Yeah. My stress is always that when I drive off, I've got a camera in there, a security camera. So if I'm too far away, I can just turn on the camera, on my phone. I can look to say, did I close that door? But the door openers are old enough to where I couldn't close it with my phone. And so I want to update them to where you can actually change, close the door with your phone.
There is an add-on that you can do that with. MyQ
Yeah.
is one of them.
One of them is a mic, and one of them has that built in, but I've never been able to get it programmed. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to have whoever installs the new ones set it all up, and then I'll have to deal with it, because I've tried everything, and I'm pretty good with that kind of stuff, but for some reason I could not get that one to connect. So
There's a company in Laguna Hills that was an affiliate with us, Entry Systems.
yeah.
They're off of Cabot. I'd recommend them for you to talk to them on not doing that. They've done a lot of gates and entry systems for customers up in Coder de Caza that I've recommended to them. They've all come back really happy with them. And they've got a showroom there as well to show the different types of doors that are available, as well as the different operators. So I'd recommend stopping in there and give them a chat.
Check them out. So my next question is, and this is something I've been wanting to ask you, is what was the hardest thing that you had to open, or what's
my very first safe?
Your very first safe. You remember it?
I came, like I said, from a manufacturing and metal background, so I had some machining background and knew how to drill. We got a call from somebody that had already had a locksmith out there, and the locksmith had given up and walked away. Sight unseen, the guy that was training me gave him a price to come and open it, and he challenged me to go do it. I didn't think the price was fair. I thought it should have been more, but I learned so much on that safe that it was, even if I'd have done it for free, it was worth it for the learning experience. So that was my first safe I opened. It took me a week to get it open.
Lost some money on that deal.
Oh yeah, but the experience I gained and the knowledge I gained. The first day I was there, I walked up to the safe, and the dial had been knocked off, but there was still a spindle sticking out. The handle had been knocked off, and there was a pair of vice grips on it. And he had started drilling a hole, and my research said where he started drilling the hole was the right spot to defeat the lock. But he didn't get all the way through. He gave up because of how hard it was. So it takes special drill bits to drill through the different layers of safes. Mild steel, you can use a regular drill bit. Hardened steel, you have to use diamond sharpened carbide drill bits, or even harder ones where they've got a product called Reslin in them, so even stronger safes, where you use diamond drill bits to drill and get the hole in. Once you get the hole in, then you still have to decrypt the lock, and you have to know how the lock works to defeat that. Well, the first day I was there, I got the lock defeated. I got the hole in it, and I got the lock defeated. But it still wasn't opening. I still couldn't rack the handle. So every day for the next 5 days, I would come in with a sledgehammer and a new can of WD-40, and I'd spray all the way around the safe door and beat on it with a hammer until I was too tired to beat on it anymore and go through that whole can. And I'd get a little bit more movement every day out of that handle. On the fifth day, it finally opened and it had 2-inch diameter bolts. There's 16 of them, and they were live bolts. It actually took me 5 turns with the handle to rack the gearing back to get all those bolts back to get it open. The rest of the story, shall I say, they had moved the safe from Chicago. It used to be in a bar. They moved it into an open-sided barn in Utah. It was 500 yards from a river. And this was in November, and they would get rolling fogs coming in and out from the river into their property. And it had been in that barn, open-sided barn, for 3 years. So it had rusted in place. My personal opinion, and I can't prove it because we don't know what the locksmith before me had tried, was I think the lock was still working. He just got frustrated because he couldn't open it and took a hammer to it, so to speak. I honestly think that if he'd have known that it was rusted in place, he could have gotten it open. What we found on the inside was some shelving with some gold bullion and coins and stuff like that, and another safe that was welded inside. That safe combination worked beautifully, and they were able to open it up and get the title to the car out that they were trying to sell. Also had their house title and all of that in there as well. But that was probably, it wasn't my, well, that was the one that took the longest. It wasn't the hardest, but that one took the longest. And it was literally from rust.
Yeah, it's kind of like when we first started doing commercial inspections, you kind of want to ease yourself into it. And I remember the second call we ever got was for a 50,000 square foot property. It had like 30 HVAC units. And I'm like,
Oh,
can you
boy.
just give us a break? You know, it's like, I need to ease into that a little bit. I don't have the manpower for that. You know, I'd have to call around and get everybody set up. So it's never easy when you start doing this kind of stuff. So I'm sure you've got a lot of patience, because I just don't know if I'd have that patience. I learned that early on when my older brother was into mechanicals. You know, he was into, motors, and, he could change out a motor in a car,
Mhm.
but
I've done that.
I'd be there helping him. And I'm like, this is not for me. I don't have the patience.
Yeah.
I don't want to hold the flashlight. I don't even want to be here. I'm bored. And so I never got into that kind of stuff just because of my experience with him.
Well, and your services that you provide, do you also have to write out, you need X amount of carbon monoxide detectors and smoke detectors and stuff like that? Is that part of your inspection as
Yeah,
well?
we're looking for it. So there's, California's got their guidelines. We still get into houses that have been flipped, and they will have a smoke detector and a carbon monoxide out in the hallway, but they don't have them in the bedrooms. They don't know that they need them in bedrooms now. And so, we still get pushback from some of the sellers who will say, well, this house was built in this time. I'm like, but you've updated it.
Doesn't, yeah.
It doesn't matter. You still need them in each bedroom, and they're strict about that. So yeah, that's something that we do call out. The smoke detectors are hard because they will, sometimes we'll see them and they'll buy them and they'll put them on the kitchen counter, and we still write it up because it's like, nice try, but they're not installed. As soon as I leave, you could just take them. And same with the ones that they mount on the walls. Who's to say, or the ones that plug into the outlet.
Right.
Who's to say that they're not going to disappear as soon as we leave? So we typically will put that comment in there that, make sure that they're still there after we leave.
Absolutely. Carbon monoxide, you'd put low, and the smoke and heat detectors up high, or?
It's typically, what I tell people is, it's manufacturer recommendations. So it depends on the brand that you're buying. Some of them are okay being on the wall. Some of them need to be up on the ceiling. It really depends on what their manufacturer recommendation is. So there's no real exact location where you put them. I've switched all mine out in here to those. Is it the Ring? I don't think it's Ring anymore, but it's not Ring. It's the Nest. Their
Is it
Nest.
Kitty or First Alert or?
They're the ones that connect to the Nest thermostat.
Okay, yeah,
So they're the Nest carbon smoke detector combos. So I paid a little bit more money for them, but it'll self-test itself. It'll send me a notification. Like, for example, somebody was doing something up in my kitchen one day, and it wasn't something that was causing a fire, but it sent me a notification on my cell phone that, hey, something's going on in your kitchen. And, then I can switch over to the cameras, and I saw I think it was my mom was here visiting, and she was doing something in there, and she wasn't burning the place down, but it set it off. So, well, we're getting close to the end of the hour. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about?
well, I wanted to ask you a question.
Sure.
You mentioned roofers.
Yep.
When you're doing an inspection, are you actually getting out on the roof, or do you just?
It depends on the
Withdrawn?
type. We don't typically like to walk tile roofs that much
Mhm.
because of the damage that can be done. So we can still inspect a roof without having to walk on it. We can do it by the ladder at the eaves, binoculars. We've got drones nowadays. You've got the camera pole systems. As you know, a lot of homes in Orange County are HOA.
Right.
And the HOA will not let you walk on the roofs, and there's times where I'll get my ladder out because we still got to get in the attic. I'll have homeowners, not homeowners, but you don't ever know who they are, but sometimes you'll have somebody that's on the board that lives next door. They see that ladder, they come screaming at you, hey, you can't get up on that roof. I'm like, I'm not getting on the roof. I'm just going, I need it for the attic. So we can typically inspect the roofs without having to walk on them. The ones today, I think the one I was at today was the first one was asphalt shingle, easy to walk on. It's the tile ones. You don't want to break the tiles because you can do more damage than, by just, inspecting it from the ground or from the ladder at the eaves and so forth. So.
Cool. So I do a lot of networking, and that's how I have my customer base. And I get a lot of referrals from people that already know me. Are you a connector? What you're doing now is, to me, is networking and connecting.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like a go-to guy for people that need services beyond what you're offering.
Yeah. 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 So I think the guests I've got lined up this week, there's a termite company that I'm having done. There is a guy that represents Legal Shield.
Mhm.
You're probably familiar with Legal Shield.
Yeah.
And then I believe I have an appliance technician, which are all, services that homeowners and realtors need to hear about. And they're going to be asked different questions, like the appliance tech. I've got a whole slurry of questions for him because he's doing everything from wash machines to refrigerators and, and we always tell people this when we're doing home inspections. Sometimes you're better off just buying a new appliance versus trying to fix one. And I'll give you an example. My first house that I ever bought, and this was up in Murray. You probably know where Murray is, up in Utah. I bought this house
I used to have a 72 unit apartment complex I managed in Murray.
Yeah. So I lived right there across from, where the old Kmart was.
Uh-huh.
And there's a new Walmart in there. So I lived over by there. And when I bought the place, the oven the oven door handle was missing. And I thought, oh, I'm not going to, ask for that. It's, not worth holding up to sale. I'll just buy one later on and put it on. I go in there and I go to get the part, $182 for the part.
Wow.
And I'm like, yeah, that's just for the part. That's just for me going down and ordering it and picking it up. And then I got it installed, and a month later, the whole thing went out. And I'm like, well, I just spent $182 plus I have to buy a new one. And so on instances like that, you just kind of have to weigh the cost of what it's going to cost to repair versus just buying a new one.
Right.
So, I'm sure I've got questions with him on that, but I've done a little bit of research on him because I think that's a service that a lot of people look for. And from what I've read is the number one appliance that breaks down is wash machines.
Yep.
and then you're up there with. I bought a new fridge, a counter depth fridge a few years ago, and you go online and you do these reviews, and the number one issue on these new fridges is the compressor. They burn out, and I asked them, I'm like, and that's probably the one time that I've really bought the extended plan
Mhm.
at Home Depot is because of that compressor. I think, for $150, you get a 5-year extended warranty. I'm like, usually I don't buy those. Usually they tell you don't buy those, but on that one, I'm like, I'm buying it. And I asked them what the issue was. It's because people don't pull them out and clean the coils back there. And they get hot and they get overheated. So, word of wisdom: if you have a fridge, pull it out from time to time and clean the
Yeah.
fins back there. The other thing I was having an issue with is that my freezer. I've got the French doors on top and the freezer at the bottom. Well, the freezer kept icing over, and I guess what was happening was they had like these little nipples to where it'll defrost,
Uh-huh.
and that little nipple was getting algae built up in it because the design is
moisture.
that it'll drip down and then the heat from the compressor will evaporate it. Well, that nipple got plugged with algae and it wasn't dripping like it was supposed to, and it was backing up into the freezer, and I kept having to break all this ice up. And when the guy came out, he knew exactly what it was, and he was in and out, like that. He did tell me, he goes, before I come out, defrost the freezers, because when I come out, I'll need to have that access. So I got all kinds of questions for that guy. And then same with you, we've met
It's
before.
a good learning experience.
Oh yeah. Well, it's just, and so that's my plan with this podcast, is just have different companies that are servicing this. And then eventually, people can go on here and listen to it when they're driving around. And like I said, I was never really big into podcasts until about 6 months ago or a year ago. And now it's like most of the information I consume is through a podcast now, because you can find something on everything. So
Absolutely.
are there any
Mention-
podcasts? Oh, go ahead.
You mentioned a couple of things that I probably should mention.
Yep.
I'm one of the few locksmiths that gives advice and or methods and products to physically fortify a home. Alarms are great, and I don't do alarms, but they let you know somebody got in. I physically, like that garage door advice I gave you, I
Yep.
physically make things harder to be broken into and or advise on ways that people can have stuff done to make it harder to be broken into. So that's one of my specialties that most other locksmiths don't do.
Yeah, you should
operate
on your website start a blog on there to where you can post this kind of stuff
I
and write it
actually
up. And
just got a website called Protect Me Randy,
Mhm.
and I'm going to be doing little videos on different things that can be done and some show and tell type stuff as well.
Yeah, I think that's critical information.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe you can debunk this, but I was always told that where if somebody's going to break into your house, they're going to go through the front door. Is that correct?
That's
That's
about
the
50s through a door. FBI statistics, about 56% of the time is through a door.
Yeah, somebody told me it was the front door. Like you'd think it'd be the back door, but somebody said it's the front door that they come through. So I don't know.
That's usually the easiest for them to.
Yeah.
One of the things that I install is, we used to be known as the break-in blocker, but it's a stainless steel fixture that's 5 inches long, has a pocket for the deadbolt to go into, and then it's got a 5-inch long rod that goes back into the two 2x4s on both the deadbolt side and the hinge side. So when you lock your deadbolt, you've got 13 inches of stainless steel, making it where they can't kick the door in because they're kicking the building through the door frame. If you think about it, your 1-inch deadbolt goes into a 1-inch wood door frame. So literally, you've got a 1-inch piece of steel that's protecting your home, but that 1-inch piece of wood is what's actually protecting your home, because that's what breaks if somebody kicks your door in. So if you reinforce your door frame, as long as you got a good deadbolt and a good door and a reinforced door frame, they're gonna leave a boot print on your door and go away somewhere else. And that's the whole idea with fortifying. That's my point of view. I'd
When
rather
you,
have them get frustrated and go away. I don't want them getting in.
when we talk about these doors, whenever I'm training a new inspector, and this has happened to pretty much everybody that I know, is that I always tell them when you go into a closet or you go into a bathroom, because we're checking each side of the door when we're doing the inspection. Do not ever walk into the master closet and close the door. I can't tell you how many times that door. It happened to me once. And that's the last time it happened. And I was lucky I had a screwdriver on me and I had a credit card to where I was able to get out. But I trained one guy once. And I tell every one of my trainees, I tell them, do not walk into a bathroom or do not walk, because we don't know about the property. We don't know how it's set up, the issues that they have. And I've had at least 2 inspectors that I've trained that forgot what I told them and have called me and said, hey, I'm locked in the master closet. I can't get out. And I've got clients that are coming and I'll have to go out there and go let them out. So it happens. But yeah, when you're,
This is in my back pocket. It's got 3 screwdriver bits inside. This is on my belt loop. That's a Leatherman tool, so I got all kinds of tools. I never go anywhere without those because I've experienced the same thing, and I've always got tools to get me back out.
yeah, yeah. So I like I said, but I just remember one inspector, he didn't have anything on him. He's like, I can't get out. I'm about ready to break the door down. I'm like, don't do it. I'll be there in a little bit. So, and then the other thing we see a lot of times is when they install the lock set backwards on just a regular door and it doesn't latch at all. It's like you're looking down. It's like, it's not that hard,
It's
guys.
usually the painters that put it, or the painter's helper that puts it
That's
back on.
probably it. That's probably it. Because when you were talking about quick set locks, I'm getting ready to have my whole place painted, and I want to change out the doorknobs. And I wanted to go with the black because I'm painting everything white, so I'm going with the black doorknobs. And I picked up.
I like that color.
Yeah, so I picked up some of those because it's a loft style. So I picked up some of those, and I remember I was at Home Depot, and I'm just an average consumer. I don't know where to get these at. First place people think of is Home Depot or Lowe's. Well, I'm in Home Depot, and I look at it, and they were about $35 a piece, and I'm like, I'm going to scan this on Amazon. I scanned it on my phone. $10 cheaper at Amazon, and all I had to wait was 1 day. And I'm like, I'm going to get them from Amazon.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that, but it's just like $10 if you got to replace, 8 locks or whatever, or 10 locks, that adds up pretty quick. So of course I'm going to do that. So,
and I advise people when they want that level of hardware to go buy it specifically from Lowe's or Home Depot or order it over the internet.
yeah, I just,
and I'm not making any money at it,
yeah,
but they have me come and install it because they want it installed correctly.
yeah,
So that's kind of where I make my money at is I'll save them money on the hardware by giving them advice, and then I come in and install it for them so that we can align the door, align the strikes, so everything latches when I get done and everything works smoothly. One of the things that I use religiously is I lubricate everything with Tri-Flow. WD-40 is not a lubricant. Tri-Flow has 3 different types of lubricants in it, and I've been using Tri-Flow since the early 70s. I've been aware of it and use it for work that I've been doing in the different industries I've been in. I actually worked part-time at a hardware store, and that's where I learned about it.
Yeah.
So,
Good.
Home Depot and Lowe's don't carry it, but you go to any high-end bike shop, any high-end sporting goods shop, gun shops, the better quality like Ace Hardware, True Value Hardware, Janolts, they all carry it along with everything else they carry. But Lowe's and Home Depot typically go with less expensive stuff that doesn't last as long or work as well.
Yeah, I wish there was more Lowe's. I've noticed that when I go into Home Depot, they don't have anything. They got it all online, but when you go into the store, it's like, well, how come you got it online, but you don't have it here? And then I'll go over to Lowe's and then they've got it. So unfortunately, there's not as many Lowe's around. I think they closed the one in Lisa Viejo. It's not there anymore, but I think the closest one to me is over
in Tustin. We still have one up in Rancho Santa Margarita. That's a good one.
Yeah, I think the one that I go to is the one over Tustin Marketplace, I think, or not
That's
Marketplace,
gone.
the other one.
That's gone.
Yeah, some more. Well, it's Tustin, but you think it would be Irvine. So, well, we could sit here and talk all
Yeah, we
night,
could.
I'm sure. So, let's go ahead and wrap this up. We're going to go ahead and wrap up today's episode. You've been listening to House Talk, a signature home inspection presentation. My name is Scott Knutson. Thanks for listening, everybody. Talk to you next time.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. All right. So I ended let's see, I'm going to end the recording.